Welcome to the Michigan State Hockey Hub first half recap show. Sorry about I missed the past 2 weeks. I was at a wedding for 2 straight weekends, but we have a special guest on today. Brad LaPlante's on with us, and he's a writer with The Only Colors. And right before the show, he was kind of telling me about his background. So I wanted to share that with you all. Brad was a former Michigan fan, but we're going to give him a break on that because he's made the transition to the good side. So, Brad, for first off, how are you doing? And second off, tell us a little bit about your background and how you got started with The Only Colors.
Yeah, so I don't know the best way to sum this up. So I'm 26, and I've always kind of wanted to go into like sports journalism. I used to be like actually a music journalist and for years, and I did like stuff with publications and stuff like that. And I was a big Michigan fan, and the stuff with not only with like just the program and I was a big football fan. So the stuff with the program wasn't doing so hot. And, it was just getting so exhausting and just bad for my mental health, as you do. And so I ended up being a Michigan State fan because mostly because my girlfriend goes here to MSU. And and the Bo Schembechler stuff also was kind of that that camel or the straw that broke the camel's back, whatever you want to, whatever the saying is, And so, it was just getting so exhausting with the elitism and stuff like that. And fan bases are like bad everywhere, but it was just like everything about it was rough. So, and I'm glad to be here. So,
yeah. So how did you get linked in with The Only Colors?
Yeah. So I actually used to be, for a short period, I was a writer at Fansided, which is sort of similar to SB Nation, which is what The Only Colors is off of, right? And with Fansided, I wrote for the Mets site, actually covering the New York Mets baseball, and then I also did
or something like that.
No. It's sort of similar though. I had connections with the people that wrote there, but I think it was called Rising Apple is what it was. I know you're talking about how you were kind of connected with baseball as well, but I follow the Mets, the Cubs, the Tigers. Only wrote about the Mets, but then I also did a lot of stuff about Michigan State for Fansided, and I was doing some stuff there. And then I actually I didn't necessarily jump ship. A lot of this stuff is like freelance, right? So just kind of be like all over. But the cool perk about The Only Colors is that they run themselves as if they are not only like just kind of a fan blog, but sort of a credentialed website. And so that's kind of like the perk, right? Is that not only can you like cover games and get like press releases about the team, but also you kind of you get like credentialed to like site or to events, So like I'm covering the Great Lakes Invitational coming up in December, and there's actually a basketball game that I'm doing before that. So it's just a lot. It's a lot better for just experience in general. And
the access is awesome.
Absolutely. Yeah. So, and it's been fun too, because I never saw myself as, I guess, as a college hockey writer, but then I'm like, there's no media coverage on this. So that's easy, like just easy stuff to write about, like content wise, not going to lie, because if football's off season, I'm not going to write about recruiting. So just get into that. And I love hockey. So Michigan State's kind of on the upswing this year. And so they're kind of, they're doing pretty hot.
Yeah, and as we were talking beforehand, that's why I started doing all this. I started this about 2 months ago. I just have been wanting more content for hockey, and I try to follow. Typically, what happens is a journalism student will cover hockey for something at MSU, graduate. He graduates, and you have to find the next one, and that's about all that they have. So for me, I was like, man, I want a podcast. I want something that I can listen to. So after years of waiting for something to happen, I just said, screw it, I'll do it myself. So, but it's been a lot of fun, and I've been able to connect with people like you and similar folks who kind of are close to the hockey program. But right now, the hockey program is on the upswing. 10-7-1 in the with their overall record. And right now, they're number 18 in the pairwise and received 28 votes for the top 20. This team is much. Now, they're not great. Don't get me wrong. but they're much, much better than last year and much better than anything we've seen in recent memory. It's been since, I think, 2012 since they made the tournament. So definitely a lot of positivity around the program and momentum. So with that being said, what do you think is kind of driving their success this year?
So I think if like I had to say, it'd probably be like collaboration and sort of the way that they play. Um because like, and I think that that's most seen in the series against Notre Dame, because I wasn't sure, because that could have gone any of two ways. Like I wasn't sure how that was going to go, right? Like I wasn't sure if it was going to be like the 7-point loss to Michigan, or where they just kind of fall off or whatever. I don't know. I mean, they could have kept with them, and they did. They jumped out to that 2-0 lead, and I was like, Jesus, I had texted a buddy of mine too. I was like, Michigan State's going to lose this game. I'm just preparing myself for defeat, like the Michigan State football versus Ohio State thing. Like I wasn't,
oh gosh,
I wasn't, and I wasn't prepared for, this 2-0 lead. Like it was, that game was almost, if you would have told me that Michigan State would have jumped out to a 14-0 lead against Ohio State in that game, it's the same. I think of it as the same effect. So I think that something that, just really jumped out to me in that game. Like what they seemed like the better team for about 10 or 15 minutes. And even though they ended up losing that first game against Notre Dame, like they were very aggressive in that first period. And I think that if you start seeing more of that side of Michigan State, if you start seeing more of them being like the aggressor and being aggressive on defense, I really think that, who knows where they could go.
Right. No, I totally agree. And I wanted to just go through the schedule just so everyone knows, especially if you've missed a few games, kind of what that looks like. Michigan State started off the season with a series against Air Force. They lost that first game in overtime, which was tough. So they split against Air Force, swept Miami, then went to UMass Lowell, took an overtime tie, and then a loss in game 2. After that, an impressive win against Ohio State, followed by a loss, so a split there. And then the one and only really just complete blowout, in my opinion, of the year. Ohio State was 5-1, but it wasn't nearly as bad as that first night against Michigan when it was 7-2 loss. They lost the next night as well, but played every bit as well as Michigan did. That was a coin flip game, in my opinion. And then after losing 3 in a row, this is when it really started to heat up on the road against Ferris State. Swept Ferris State, including my favorite game of the year when they came back in the third period and was just scoring with the last about 3 minutes or so, scored 3 goals. And then swept Wisconsin, split against Penn State, and split against Notre Dame, which takes us up to where they are right now. Right at the midseason break, right before the GLI, and we will touch on the GLI a little bit. Excuse me. Okay, so the next question I have for you is, which player has taken the biggest step forward this season? And I know that you weren't necessarily as involved last year or anything, but which player to you has kind of stepped up? And I guess, how about this? I'll rephrase the question. From maybe the beginning of the year till now, who do you think's improved the most? Or
So I actually looked, and again, like you mentioned, I wasn't really involved, I guess, all that much last year, but I did go back and look at a few of the stats. But two players mostly. Okay, I'm gonna say Mitchell Lewandowski.
yeah,
I think that's how you say it.
Lewandowski.
All these hockey names. Mitchell Lewandowski.
I know. They're tough.
and Drew DeRitter. Probably. So DeRitter, first off, is playing the best hockey of his career. Like absolutely. His goals against average is under 2. He's what is it? He has 3 shutouts this year. Lewandowski has also really stepped up and kind of been the I think you could argue he's been the most important player on this team.
They're 1-4 without him in the lineup when he was injured. 1-4, and
right.
A much better record with him in the lineup after he came back from injury.
100%. And this team like needs him. And so I think that like again, like without DeRitter and without Lewandowski, like this team is as good as last year's team was at their highest point. And so
Yeah.
I think that like when you like consider those two, those are probably the biggest just I don't know, like it's great to watch them every night. Like Lewandowski has he before the Notre Dame loss just last week, he had 11 game point streak, and then he didn't score in that game or get an assist. But still, like that's insane. And then he scored the game winner.
Yeah. So Lewandowski, when he came in as a freshman, he was on a pair with Taro Hirose, who's really good in the AHL right now, seeing time in the NHL, and Patrick Kodorinko, who's just a super talented player. And that line was incredible. Everyone in the nation knew about it. It was one of the best lines in the nation. Those two players moved on. They broke up the line, and Lewandowski never kind of got back to what he was. And last year, I mean, he really he was still fine, but he wasn't nearly what he was going to be. He came back with the COVID eligibility, and honestly, I expected him to be somebody who would score some goals, but not do much more. And he's proven to be more than that. He's facilitating the offense, generating scoring chances. And when he's not on the ice, when he's missed games, this team is just not nearly as fluent. But I do that leads us into our next kind of question here. I'm going to pull up, and those of you who are listening on Spotify will not be able to see this, but I will try my best to read everything out. If you're watching on YouTube, you will now see a chart populate. And what this chart is as I've been watching this year, I thought, my gosh, there's a lot more better, just better offense. And this chart will show you the 2020 season, the entirety of the year, 27 games total in one column. The next column, the 2022 season to this date, 18 total games. So keep that in mind, 9 less games. And we're just going to compare some of the stats. Michigan State in 2021 already has more wins than last year, 10 compared to 7. More home wins than last year, 6 compared to 5. More away wins than last year, 4 compared to 2. Total goals in 9 less games already has 4 more goals than last year. Last year, they only had 5 power play goals, all 27 games. This year, they already have 12. I'm not a big plus minus guy, but I thought that this was interesting. 2020, they didn't have a single player in the positive for plus minus. They already have 6 players this year. Trailing after 2 periods. 2020 season, 0-12. 2021, 4-3-1. This team last year, if they got down, that was it. They had no chance. This year, they've been able to battle back. I mean, 4-3-1 when you're down after 2 periods is pretty damn impressive. Mitchell Lewandowski, 13 points last year with 6 goals this year, 7 goals, 18 points. Already a plus 13 this year compared to a -1 last year. Josh Nodler, 11 points last year with 3 goals, 4 goals this year, 11 points. Christoph Papp, talented player, struggled last year to find his footing, only 4 points with 4 assists last year. 9 points already this year and scored his first collegiate goal. And where he's really been impressive is on the dot, 58.5% for faceoffs. Really impressive. The Krieger twins, although I want them to stay out of the box more, have both been putting up a little bit more offense. 3 points last year for Cole, already has 6 points. And I thought that this was interesting. 22 block shots last year in 27 games for Cole Krieger, already has 22 so far in 2021. Christian Krieger, 3 points last year, 6 already this year. Nash Niehaus, 4 points last year, 6 this year. AJ Hausers, 1 point last year, 3 this year. You all are getting the idea here. Sorry to go too heavy on numbers, but Drew DeRitter, who we'll touch on really quickly, absolutely incredible. Last year, 9.38 save percentage, which is remarkable. This year, 9.45 save percentage. Last year, 2.76 goals per game. This year, 1.99 goals per game. That was a mouthful. That was a lot for me to read there. And I doubt anybody's really digesting that. But I wanted to prove a point of just how, and just through only 18 games, this team has been drastically better. and it really does fall a lot on Drew DeRidder. There's been several times he has just stolen games that Michigan State should not have won. And he won or was awarded the first star of the week in the Big Ten this week after his shutout performance last Saturday at Notre Dame.
He was
Yeah,
also
so I
the
mean,
first star of the week after UMass Lowell earlier this
yeah.
season, which is so
Mhm.
second time this year. That's crazy.
Yeah, and I've touched on this before, but Drew DeRidder and Pierce Charleston were really splitting starts in the beginning of the year, and Drew kind of took the net back over, and Pierce is going to play some. This isn't Jake Hildebrand, who was the goalie several years ago, who's just starting almost every single game. Drew's going to get a little bit of rest, but hell, by the end of the year, you could see Drew just and Pierce is really good. He was what, third star of the week 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, or something.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. Like, and I was thinking about this too. The tandem situation's nice. Like, I kind of dig it. I mean,
Yeah,
it's what the Red Wings have kind of been doing, and I'm kind of like,
yeah,
yeah, this is fine. But it's weird to me though too, because like I think about it, and I'm like, Michigan State might have won that game. The
yeah.
first game against Notre Dame, like they could have swept them if DeRidder was in net. That's like very much a possibility. But at the same time, you look at it and you're like, you're a coach. It's like in baseball, if a dude hits a home run, why are you gonna sit him the next day? You know what I mean? Like
Yeah,
Charleston had that performance against Penn State. Was awarded third star of the week, had the assist in the game-winning goal. Like you can't not play him. You know what I mean? And
ride
that's
the
kind
hot
of a
hand.
tragedy. What's that?
I said you got to ride the hot hand at times, and
Yeah.
it is a point. Pierce has been good. And what a lot of people don't realize is last year Pierce was a freshman, 0 fans. He comes in this year and he's starting on the road at Michigan. I'm just trying to paint the picture of this kid now has to deal with his first kind of jitters of college hockey. And the one thing I think I've said this plenty of times, I am not a hockey expert. X's and O's of the game, like breaking down film, is not something I would say I'm able to do. But just a fan's perspective, I think he could improve on his rebound control a little bit. But he's a damn good goalie, and he's going to take over the net next year, unless I guess Drew DeRidder technically could use his COVID year. I don't think that will happen, but so they're kind of priming him for next year as well. But yeah, I was just amazed by the stats. It's incredible how much more offense this team has been able to generate. While the competition's different, because last year they played all Big Ten schedule. Arizona State was technically in the Big Ten last year for whatever reason. I mean, COVID just threw any rules out the window. So the competition's a little bit different, but I don't care. It's been that much better this year. So I wanted to move on to the next question. What is an area that you think this team needs to work on in order to improve and kind of reach another level?
So I think that their special teams has sort of improved. I think that they really need to cut down the penalties. And I know
Yes.
that they're kind of killing penalties, but and I know that there's the controversial slew foot penalty on Christian Krieger from last season or from last game against the what is it, 2 games ago against Notre Dame, where that kind of seemed to swing the momentum for the rest of the game. Really, like Michigan State took that penalty, and again, it was a 5-minute major, so that was kind of a bummer to see that. Because it didn't seem like that was like deserving, but at the same time, like Christian Krieger, dude's got 13 penalties, I think, for like 37 minutes, I believe.
Yeah, I mean, he's always the Krieger twins are in the box often, and
Yeah, I mean,
Joshua Jagger Joshua is in the box almost every game too.
and like it's just kind of one of those things where like, yeah, I'm not expecting anyone to get like 0 penalties a game. It'd just be nice to get one, not, and they did pretty well against Notre Dame. I thought that they did that. I think that not being stupid with the puck, like they did again, like they've improved on a lot of things that I saw in the Penn State matchup against Notre Dame that they did pretty well. like just avoiding costly turnovers and stuff like that. But outside of that, I mean, just again, like avoiding turnovers, stupid penalties, and yeah, just I don't know, just start overpowering and giving me more of what I saw against Notre Dame for the first 10 minutes
Yeah,
in that first game.
at times, and Coach Cole touches on this pretty often in his pressers and post games, and at times they don't seem to give. It's not an effort thing; it's an execution thing. I think where they come out and they look sharp, and they're tape to tape passes, and they're really playing with a high IQ. And then at times it just looks sloppy, and they're
Right.
giving up high scoring chances. So just trying to play a more complete game.
Right.
I think that would be able to take them in a couple of those one goal games that they lose. It could flip the script.
Yeah, and I like that they're scoring more in the third period. Like that seems to be something way to look forward to. Like their third period is their best stanza so far this year, and I mean, like again, like they're and they've kind of like looked like they kind of fall like apart a little bit in the middle of the game, and then they come right back and they score game winners or do whatever, and just in those last 20 minutes. So
Yeah,
and just
and
again
that
like
brings up my favorite moment from this entire season so far was at Fair State. Down, I don't remember if it was, I think it was 3-0. Um, Josh Nodler scores on a beautiful goal, and it's at Fair State, which is a tough place to play. And then Jesse Tucker with a nice kind of 180 pass to Cole Krieger, who scored. Dennis Cezanne scored with just like a minute left. And then Eric Middendorf scored a clutch goal with about 20 seconds left. And actually, I think, yes, I'm going to go ahead and do I have that? Yes, I'm going to play that goal. So if you just wait 1 second.
DeVita trying to clear the zone. Nodler in front. Middendorf, the shot. It went wide of the goal. Side of the net. Came out in front. They score.
So that goal was awesome and my favorite moment of the year because Lewandowski was his first game back and he was just buzzing all over the ice. And he actually, I did not notice it in real time, but delivered that pass out in front of the goal. It's just small things like that, making the small play, the right play at the right time. That's how I think that this team can kind of take a bigger step forward. So as we're looking on to the second half, who is a player who maybe hasn't produced as much that you could see having a big second half? One player that immediately came to mind for me was Tanner Kelly,
I was just
who
gonna say the
scored
same
against.
thing.
Yeah. Okay. Well, then I'll go.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
I'm on
I'll
the
let you
same
take
I'm
it
on the
away.
same page. I was like, because I was glossing over this and I'm like looking at it and I'm like, because the one thing that I think about the most, I think, is that this is technically a rebuild season for Michigan State, right? Like they need a nice bounce back year to get this program in the right trajectory. Like nobody's expecting them to win the Big Ten. I mean, we're talking about a team that may not get into the tournament, right? And so it'd just be nice to see like the freshmen and the younger players step up. And I think that like with Tanner Kelly, he's one of two freshman forwards. I think like three freshmen on the team. Obviously the other forward being Jesse Tucker. And, when you compare the two, like Tucker has 7 points. Kelly has the goal. Like that's all he's got is one goal. And I don't know if this has to do with, I know that what is it? Tucker was on the same line as Lewandowski. And when you're on the same line as, the highest scorer on your team, like that's going to benefit you a lot of the time. But I mean, at the same time, like he just hasn't produced as much as you'd like to see, especially when, again, like you consider that this team is sort of in a rebuild, and looking for a nice bounce back season when last year was very disappointing. And so like you're looking for the young freshmen, you're looking for the young guys who are going to be the future of this team. And when you see a guy like, again, like when you got three freshmen and one's like severely underproducing, like you're not seeing that sort of goal production or assist production.
Right. So Kelly came in this year and he's younger. He could have,
Right.
I'm pretty sure he could have come in next year as a freshman if he wanted to. And he's shown some offense. And if you watch any of the games, everyone notices Tanner Kelly flying around the ice, pestering anyone who has the puck. kind of plays against the boards well, generates offense by kind of puck retrieval, and he's not exactly always looking for his own shot, but he has scoring ability. And it's one of those deals that it may not be this year, but I know if you can surround him with some talent and let him kind of be the facilitator on a line, he's going to start to pick up some assists. And he did have a couple of chances. I think he had an assist against Ferris State. That was a really nice pass, just a little easy backhand pass to in front of the goal. But he actually would have had a goal against Michigan, literally a wide open net. The goalie was out of the net and he hit the pipe, and he was literally, I mean, a baseball bat length away from the goal. It was so bad. And then
that's the worst feeling.
Yeah, and then Michigan scored a couple goals, and it was pretty much game over. But yeah, I like Tanner Kelly. I like Christoph Papp if he can be a little bit more consistent in his game. Jesse Tucker, who you mentioned, I'm a fanboy for him. He's just so good, and I just love his style of play. So those are all players who I think can still elevate their game. On defense, Aiden Gallagher, I would like to see a little bit more. He's not really going to produce a ton of points, or Nash Niehaus. I think Nash is maybe a little bit more offensively skilled, but
Michigan State's defense is kind of produced a lot too, and I think that's just something that I've been impressed by too. Like they like, what is it? I think half of their points came from their defense against Notre Dame. Then you had Dennis Cesena or Cesena.
Sasana.
I'm like, I remember how to pronounce it.
It's okay. I do. So there's a player. He doesn't play much, but I like Powell Connor, and I paused because I had to think, because I call him Connor Powell.
So do I, because it's always last name first name.
Yeah,
it's always last name first name, and I'm like
Connor Powell, Powell Connor. I will say it each and every way. But moving on, looking at their schedule, and this isn't much of a question as much as something I just want to mention to everybody. Right now, here's what the remaining schedule looks like. The GLI coming up the 29th and 30th, which I will be in attendance. By the way, I am coming up from Kentucky to be at the GLI. Western Michigan, hell of a team. I'm going to do a full preview of that game with somebody who writes for and covers their hockey team, so be looking out for that. Michigan Tech. After that, I'll be doing the same preview with a Michigan Tech hockey person as well. Then we have 4 against Minnesota, who's going to finish 1 or 2 in the Big Ten. 2 against Wisconsin, 2 against Ohio State, 2 against Michigan, 2 against Notre Dame, and 2 against Penn State. The last 4 games of the year will be at home. This is a good opportunity to just build your resume and show just how strong you are. You have a lot of very talented teams ahead of you, and now it's time to just show us how good you are. And it's possible that 2 months from now we're talking and it's like, man, this team was kind of a paper tiger. They looked good in the first half, and then they started playing some tough teams. And the GLI is fun, and it helps in the pairwise if you win, but it obviously does not change the Big Ten standings. Right. Those 4 against Minnesota, I mean, those are going to be really tough. So yeah, I just wanted to lay that out there for everyone to see.
Going to Michigan, I mean, well, not Michigan, but not necessarily the game. What I think that's on February 11th, but more so the game that's on February 12th when they go to Little Caesars. Like, I guess I don't really care. I would take the Little Caesars win over the Michigan win in Ann Arbor.
I'll be at both of those games as well.
Oh, that's exciting. Cool.
They call that game the Duel in the D. That's what they call it. And a few years ago, they started that. It was several years ago. They have a cool trophy, so you definitely want to steal that game. But moving on, who has been your first half MVP? I think we've already talked about him in the beginning of the game, or excuse me, of the beginning of the podcast here.
So, yeah, I mean, like, I want to say it's DeRitter, but Lewandowski again also been great.
I was gonna say whoever you don't take, I'll take. So.
And that's the thing. Like, until that loss against Notre Dame, Lewandowski had that 11-point game streak snapped. Then he scored that game winner in OT the following night. So it's like hard to say, who's better
You
than
can't go
who,
wrong with that.
and so I think that without either one of them, I think that this team is in, I don't want to say the gutter, but it just seems like it'd be heading in that direction.
Yeah. No, I totally agree. I mean, either one of those.
It's vital.
Yeah. I mean, you're talking about a guy who's, I would have to go back and really, really look to see if I'm comfortable saying has stolen maybe 3 wins for you in that. Maybe, I don't know, man. He's just, there's games they should lose and they don't because of Drew DeRitter. But then we saw how important Lewandowski is when he is in the lineup. He moves offense. He helps on the power play. He's a high hockey IQ, a veteran presence. I mean, both of them. I mean, I'll just go 1A, 1B. I'll cop out here.
Yeah, I again, like, I think DeRitter should be in the net most nights. Like, I love the tandem thing, but I mean, he gives them the best chance to win, and so that's just me. Again, like, I love Charleston, but I would put DeRitter, if they want to make the tournament, I would put DeRitter in. Like, you got to give him some games in a row. Like, you can't keep doing this thing where DeRitter and Charleston keep splitting time between, like, almost equal as of late,
Yeah, it was so weird. It was equal, then it was Drew, then it's kind of gone back to split.
Right.
So we'll see what happens in the GLI. I don't think that's a good determination, actually.
I think that if they may do a tandem, because the game against Western Michigan is the more important one, I would put DeRitter in net then. Michigan Tech is kind of on they're kind of on the verge of being ranked in the the USA Today top 15. They're kind of number 18 in the USCHO. So it's not like Charleston can handle that game. Like, that's something that he could do. If DeRitter wants a night off or whatever. But I would absolutely put DeRitter in against Western Michigan. Like, that's kind of you got to do that.
Yeah. We won't get too deep into the Big Ten standings because there's just so much more to play. But just from what you've seen so far, what is ahead, any guess where they will finish in the Big Ten standings?
It's hard to say. I don't know if they will
I have no idea.
Overtake Ohio State or Notre Dame. Like, I don't know what their ceiling is. I don't know what they can be. Their ceiling, really, to me, kind of it just depends. And I know we kind of like skipped all over, but I think that with, like, the Big Ten being this thing where Michigan State, like, there's kind of a drop off after them. Like, if you look at the Big Ten standings, right? Like, they have I think it's like 13 or 14 points or something like that. And then the team below them has like 9. So I don't think that they'll fall like lower than, I think, like, Wisconsin's in that 6th spot. I don't think they'll fall lower than that, but I don't know that they'll overtake both Ohio State and Notre Dame. They absolutely can, but I don't know that they will, because again, like, they got to elevate. They're right here. They just need to get like a little bit more out of it.
Yeah, I said in the beginning of the year that 3rd spot is going to be up for grabs for a few different teams, and I think even though Penn State hasn't been much of a threat this year, I still think that they're better than what they've shown. I'm not saying that they will 100%. Come up, but
and I absolutely
team
agree.
To kind of keep an eye on. So, all right, well, that's going to wrap it up tonight. Thank you so much, Brad. We really do appreciate it. Thank you for just giving us your time and coming on to chat Michigan State hockey. You all can.
I'm always down to do that.
Yeah, and you all can follow him at his on the screen, and when you see this populated, it'll be in the descriptions as well. So, Brad, thanks again, and go green.
Go green.